leadership and management is cross-cutting. So you can provide the same stewardship for different companies, irrespective of the sectors. We appreciate more the importance of communicating because we have been victims of not communicating and people communicating the wrong things about us. So as a strategy, we are looking at being more proactive and telling our own story. Today, we have a law that governs private security companies. And this is a public document. And it is very clear on what needs to be done to be able to get an arms license. So it is not preferential. By being interested in some of these countries, we have had a situation where some of the investors that we were going to work with in those countries, when they visit Rwanda, they actually take a decision to first invest in Rwanda.
Really? Hello there. My guest this week on the Long Form podcast is Dr. Jack Kayonga, the CEO of Crystal Ventures Limited. Crystal Ventures is a company that was originally established in 1995 under the name TriStar Investments Limited. Crystal Ventures Limited, or CVL as it's locally known, is a company that is totally owned by the Rwanda Patriotic Front, Rwanda's ruling party. Hello there. Before we dive into today's conversation, have you subscribed to our channel yet? If you haven't, do so. And remember to share your thoughts with us in the comments below and like this video. Your support means a lot. Now let's get into it. Dr. Jack Kayonga, welcome to the Long Form.
Thank you very much.
First, I just want to thank you for making time. I know someone like you, getting a few hours out of your day to sit down with me is not something that I take for granted.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was I went onto the CVL website and I did a bit of research on you. You've not only been the CEO of CVL at the group level, you've also previously been an economist in the Ministry of Finance, a banker at the Development Bank of Rwanda, and also the CEO of the Agaciro Fund, Rwanda's sovereign wealth fund. I'd like to ask you, what were the lessons from these previous postings that you were able to then utilize as CEO of CVL Group?
Thank you, Sanny. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, different positions put in different places to learn in a different way. The lessons from a junior economist to a CEO in the different institutions is different. But some of the cross-cutting lessons, people matter, the way you deal with your people, the way you deal with your colleagues, the way you delegate, the way you empower them, ultimately is what drives the performance. Secondly is communication, how you communicate with the different stakeholders in good and bad times. Communication always stands out. And thirdly is to focus on being result-oriented and defining the different results, both financial and non-financial, especially when you're talking about managing companies. It's important that you keep your focus on results.
Yeah. How hard is it to, CVL is such a big conglomerate, right? You're in agri-processing, you're in granite, you are in trading, security. How hard is it, or how easy is it for you to kind of juggle all these things?
It's definitely not easy. Every day starts at its own pace and it's at its own pace. But the most important thing is that leadership and management is cross-cutting. So you can provide the same stewardship for different companies, irrespective of the sectors. So the key is to have competent people in leadership in those companies that understand the business, and then you give them the leadership that they need to be able to drive the business. Secondly is to empower yourself with tools that can enable you to have close supervision of what is happening. Thanks to technology, you can use things like dashboards, you can have regular reporting, and then most importantly, be close to the business in all aspects so that you can understand at least what needs to be done, when and by who, and then empower your people. Gradual empowerment of the people as you empower them is extremely important.
Yeah. It's when you talk about being hands-on, previously we met and you had told me that you'd actually come from the northern province where you were personally seeing the progress on, I think, a road that MPD Contractor, one of your companies, was building. Why did you feel the need to personally go? I mean, you're group CEO, you should be dealing with, I guess, the big issues. Why are you going on the ground as CEO to actually see, hey, is this road being built at the necessary speed and at the necessary standards?
Very interesting question. I think this is something that we have learned over time, and it comes from the fact on how we are held accountable. When I'm being held to account, the assumption is that I should have been on ground. Because when you're dealing especially with the chairman,
the chairman being
chairman of the party, being the chairman of the business.
The president of the republic, yes.
Yes. He will have the facts. And you don't want to be in a situation when you don't have the facts. But also when you go on ground, you better appreciate the challenges that your teams are going through, and it gives you more impetus to support them. Because you understand the challenges, you help even unblock some of the issues, because if I go there and I meet the governor, I meet the mayor, the conversations are at a different level, and this empowers the teams. Even the teams seeing you on ground in such harsh environments at times, they are very encouraged that you actually care, and for that they will provide their best.
And so after all this work, they always say, you know, for all the work that you do, there has to be some kind of stress release. I know that you like a sport of golf. Yes. Is that how you know, stress relief after a long day, or are there other means and ways that you know, kind of get some chance to breathe? Because when I think about this, you're constantly dealing with 1,000 million things. If you don't find a way to relax, I think you might actually be submerged with all the issues at stake. So I think it would be interesting for me to hear, you know, how you relax.
True, I love golf. Golf is a very good game. It's a game that you're able to create very lasting relationships while also doing sports. Unfortunately, it's not a game you can play as often as you want, because it requires putting aside some time. So whenever I'm able to play it, especially the very early mornings, I ensure I do so. Other than that, a little bit of socializing with friends, colleagues, family. Family is important. So it's always important to give them time. And then I also have a hobby of farming, which I try to do during some weekends, which also relaxes me and keeps me focused.
What kind of farming do you do?
I'm a dairy farmer.
That's really cool. I guess as on one side you are managing the Inyan, on the other side you're also a producer of the milk.
Yes, I produce as an individual, and then Inyan is one of the portfolio companies of Crystal Ventures that is changing lives for the farmers increasingly. You may know that we started Inyan about close to 20 years ago, producing about 5,000 liters. As of last year, we were producing 200,000 liters. We have now just completed a plant in Nyagatare that will be producing 800,000 liters a day. To put things into context, Sanny, if we are doing 800,000 liters a day, we are talking of about 320 million francs being injected in the farmers' pockets all over the country.
Every day.
Every day. So you can do the numbers, the kind of impact that you would have within a month, within a year. And most importantly, the farmers to be sure that whatsoever they produce will be bought by the plant. And then also the plant to be sure that whatsoever it produces, there's ready market for it. So we expect it to be the largest industry in Rwanda by the end of this year.
Yeah. You know, CVL or Crystal Ventures is such an interesting company because everyone knows about it, but very few people actually know it. You get what I'm saying? There almost seems to be a certain opaqueness to it. Is that deliberate?
It did serve its purpose at a certain point in time. Yes, it was deliberate at a certain point in time. But now the approach is different. We appreciate more the importance of communicating because we have been victims of not communicating and people communicating the wrong things about us. So as a strategy, we are looking at being more proactive and telling our own story because we do actually have very many good stories to talk about.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask about one of the biggest opaque thing. So I was looking for CVL's valuations, their numbers online, and the only data I could find was from a 2009 study by David Booth and Frederick Goloba Mutebi that indicated at that time that CVL was valued at around $500 million. So I guess I have two questions. One, was that valuation correct in 2009? And secondly, if you can you share with us the valuation of CVL today?
I did read that report, and I think, if I recall well, they were quoting the then executive chairman of Crystal Ventures. So based on that, I would say the valuation must have been right. In terms of valuation now, I would answer it twofold. First of all, we are going through a restructuring. So last year, we decided to restructure Crystal Ventures in terms of restructuring the portfolio. And some of the portfolio companies were moved out of Crystal Ventures, and we maintained only 5 companies in Crystal Ventures. And these are NPD, Rio Contractors, East African Granite, ISCO, and Inyan. The reason we did this is because different companies are at different levels of maturity, and different companies at different levels of strategic importance. And we decided to start a journey of going IPO. And that's why we did some cherry picking and put out only the 5 best performing companies, and those are the ones that are housed in CVL. Now, given the process that we are at, it would be difficult to give you a value because we are going to go IPO.
An IPO, what is an IPO?
IPO is an initial public offer, which is we are going to sell our shares onto the stock exchange.
Oh, really?
So we are going to list CVL probably next year. So based on that, I will not be able to give a value, but I could say it is definitely way above the value that was mentioned in that report. But we should be able to come public maybe sometime next year. And by going public, that would mean we'll even be providing our financials more regularly as required by the Capital Markets Authority.
Why are you choosing to list the companies on, will it be on the Rwandan Stock Exchange?
The primary listing will be on the Rwanda Stock Exchange, but given the size of Crystal Ventures, there might be a need to do some secondary listing.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I think BK Capital also listed in Nairobi a while ago.
BK, yeah,
yes.
BK did list.
Yes, so, I mean, and will this, I guess, for someone who doesn't understand an IPO, why do you do that?
Well, several reasons. One of the reasons is to leverage your book, to free some of the capital, to get some money, either to divest or reinvest into the businesses. Secondly, in the case of Crystal Ventures, is also to manage reputation, because we have always been regarded as politically affiliated, which is not wrong. And when you go to the stock exchange, when you free some of the shareholding to the public, then you cease to be a political affiliated company, you become a public company. So from a reputation point of view, it is also very good. Thirdly, given our DNA, it is something that we'd want to do to be able to build the Rwanda Stock Exchange and also increase the liquidity on the stock exchange. And most importantly, it will be an opportunity for the Rwandans to also own one of Rwanda's best companies.
No, I'm excited for that. I'll personally keep some money aside
Please do.
to buy a few shares. CVL has been accused by some of unfairly dominating Rwanda's private sector due to its relationship with the RPF. Do you think that is a fair judgment? And if not, why do you believe people think that way?
It is not a fair judgment. I think they believe that way because we have created that communication gap. But also similar models in other countries have failed. Crystal Ventures is not the only party-owned company that has been created. There are several that have been created even in Africa, and they have not been successful.
Really? I had no idea.
Well, there are quite some, if you allow me not mention them. But maybe if I can go back into the history to show you that there is no favor. The first company of Crystal Ventures trading under the previous name of TriStar was Mutara Enterprises. Mutara Enterprises was set up purely to address the need of basic needs. Basic needs like sugar, salt, paraffin, because there was hard electricity at that time. And there was no private sector operator that was willing to invest in a pretty much failed state of 1994. But then the party, with the few resources that they had remained with, decided to invest in this. When the traders came into the market, the Rwandan traders started bringing in sugar, salt, and all this. We exited. We are not into that business. We fast forward around 1997, under the leadership of the president, he insisted we need to have a telecom company. MTN was brought to Rwanda with a very good deal negotiated for them and for us as a party. The party was one of the shareholders. We had about 80%, they had 20%. Business went well. Fast forward, Airtel and Tigo come. We got an instruction, you're not creating a level playing field because of who you are, exit the business. We exited the business at a very good multiple, and we reinvested the money in other industries. Inyan, the same story. The farmers had nowhere to sell their produce. And this is not only the dairy farmers. We're also talking with the maracuja farmers, the pineapple farmers in Eastern Province, in Goma and other areas. All of them, their pineapples were rotting in their gardens. And the president, because he practically is the chairman of Crystal Ventures, instructs us to take those strategic leadership in having this. Same thing happened for NPD. We were not having construction companies that were willing to go into certain sectors or were willing to behave in a certain way that could be patient with the growth of the country. I would go on and on and on. If you look at the milk powder plant, the reason the president insisted we invest in it is because the farmers had excess milk and nobody was being able to buy it. We have invested over $50 million in that industry alone because of our long-term vision to be able to address this. So there is hardly any company that could say of Crystal Ventures that you'd say has crowded out business. If you look at the construction sector, how we get the different contracts, our success rate is anywhere between 2 or 3 out of 10 for the projects that we bid for. And this is public information, if anybody was interested to know. But if you go back again to the report that the Gorobas made that time, they also provided some of the evidence that it was quite an unfair judgment of Crystal Ventures.
So let's talk about some of the misconceptions and rumors about CVL. I've heard a few. One of the ones that I've personally heard is that only ISCO is only ISCO among all the private security companies working in Rwanda are allowed to carry firearms. That's a rumor that I've personally heard. Perhaps today I have you here. Maybe you can help unpack that rumor and maybe share with us any other rumors that you have heard and maybe would like to address.
Thanks for the question. It is indeed a misconception. An industry like private security in a country like Rwanda is governed by laws. Today, we have a law that governs private security companies. And this is a public document. And it is very clear on what needs to be done to be able to get an arms license. So it is not preferential. There are conditions for you to fulfill before the national police can give you a license to carry arms. I won't speak for our competitors where they have not got the license, but we have fulfilled the conditions, we continue to fulfill the conditions, and that's why ISCO has guns. It is not through some policy protection of any nature. Anybody who doubts what I'm saying can look for that law. It's public, and anyone who wants to get the guns, by the way, I'm told even individuals, there are processes that one can fulfill to be able to get a firearm in Rwanda.
Any other rumors that you've heard, misconceptions?
There will always be misconceptions. One of the misconceptions is that there are no governance structures in Crystal Ventures. It is not true. We are governed like any other company. We do respect the provisions of company law. We do have a board. We are audited. All our companies, including Crystal Ventures itself, is audited by the best firms, including the big four. And most of our companies, we do declare our returns. Some people actually think we don't pay taxes. I dare say we are one of the largest taxpayers in Rwanda. Last year alone, we paid over 50 billion in taxes.
Oh, wow.
So these are misconceptions, and this is mainly partially for us to be blamed for having not been proactive in our communication. But I think it is of time, and even a session like yours is timely for us to put the truth out there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the sectors that CVL has invested in the country. So you have granite, food processing, civil works, construction, and security. Why did CVL choose those sectors in particular? And secondly, why hasn't CVL, for example, invested in, say, light to heavy industry? Do you ever see CVL, kind of moving away from, I guess, what I would call primary manufacturing, which is, turning milk into milk powder or granite into tiles, but maybe from granite into one day battery manufacturing, for example?
It's a good challenge. We have had an organic growth from pretty much nothing. We are financial investors, so we are very careful even how we invest. For example, if we went into battery manufacturing, it would be very important that we have a strategic partner. Now, the story of Crystal Ventures cannot be isolated from the story of Rwanda. And if you look at the growth trajectory of Rwanda, it's only in recent times that such conversations could be had with our strategic investors. And I would say, as we speak now, we are speaking to several investors who are actually interested in investing with Rwanda and investing with CVL to be able to go into manufacturing of the likes of batteries, mainly looking at the components so we're talking about refinery of minerals, minerals in Rwanda, minerals from other countries. And this would never have done as Crystal Ventures because it is not only a factor of resources, it is also a factor of technology, it's a factor of the market. And some of these sectors, if you're not careful, they are very well protected. And you could produce something that would pretty much be difficult to be put on the market. So we're aware of the importance, we're aware of how this could lead to employment, which is one of our key visions to create employment in Rwanda. But we are taking it step by step and talking to different potential investors that could come into joint ventures with us.
And why those 5 original sectors?
It was more about gap filling. I mentioned the gap that Inyan was filling. In the case of granite, the story of granite begins with the president visiting a granite factory in China, and then he realizes that the stone they were producing actually the high deposits in Rwanda. So he invites them to Rwanda, and then they go visit several sites based on our geological map. And the one that they liked most was the one in Nyagatare. And then we were rallied to invest together with RSSB, and then BRD at that time also provided a loan. And this was more of domestic market recapturing or import substitution to say, why should we keep on importing cheap ceramics, yet we can have high-end granite in Rwanda for both our domestic markets and for our exports. So it is about the gap filling. And we are now investing in a state-of-the-art, highly robotic industry for Ruliba. Should be also complete by July this year.
That's clay?
That's clay. And we'll be providing different other products out of clay by July of this year.
So, if you've kind of mentioned, you in your previous answers, you've kind of mentioned one of the impacts of CVL on the economy, which is about 50 billion francs per year in taxes. Is that at the group level, or is it the individual companies under CVL?
Consolidated for all the companies.
So yes, so you've kind of mentioned about some of the impacts of CVL in the local economy. Can you share perhaps other impacts in terms, say, for example, job figures?
If you look at our current payroll, we are in excess of maybe 11,000 employees, and that's on a permanent basis. If you look at the subcontractors, if you look at the casual workers, especially on our construction projects, they could easily be about the same number. I would say in terms of employment, must be second to government in providing employment into this country. In terms of other impact, if you look at the number of farmers that we reach, both for dairy and fruits, we are talking of also tens of thousands of farmers, providing them timely payment and ready market for their produce.
And at a level, when you're producing made in Rwanda products, obviously what you're also doing is reducing the amount of money that goes into importing the juices. Because I remember a few decades ago, everything had to be imported, whether it was milk products, whether it was food products, ceramics. Do you kind of have any figure that kind of that would help us understand what CVL has been able to do in terms of helping on our balance of payment challenges?
I don't have the figure. and I think it would be an exaggeration to say it has been significant. We have played a role, but I don't think in terms of the BOP challenge of this country, consumable goods would be a significant number. I think the capital goods takes the biggest component of importation. That said, we are not only recapturing the domestic market, we have also been able to get quite a size of the export market because given who we are, we don't compromise on quality. And that's why we are a registered supplier with the UN. Our products go as far as Syria, Sudan, the DRC, almost everywhere that the UN forces are. They do consume our products in significant numbers.
So now CVL is starting, it's no longer just in Rwanda. It seems that you've gotten comfortable here, now you're looking across the continent and saying, what are the opportunities for us to invest our funds and get a return? I've heard of CVL doing business in places as diverse as Central African Republic and Mozambique as well. It would seem that our move into some of these markets has caused some discomfort. I've been reading a few reports. It's all of a sudden, where you'll see the reports in the Africa report, you'll see things from International Crisis Group, and a lot of it, for me, seems as if because of CVL entering some of these markets, some of the entrenched interests that were already there are not enjoying the competition, or I'd call us the new kids on the block, coming in with maybe better deals, better partnerships. So I'm thinking that a lot of the discomfort is coming from that space. Would you agree with that assessment, or do you personally think that there might be other issues that cause this discomfort?
I entirely agree. I entirely agree with the analysis, and you can tell based on the source of the information. The information is not coming from the people of those countries. When you go to these countries, and trust me, I've been there, it is the other way around. You're having brothers and sisters in these countries who have visited Rwanda, who are saying, if Rwanda can do it, why reinvent a wheel? Why don't we work with the Rwandans and then see how we can learn from each other? So when we go to these countries, we are not naive that there will be a lot of criticism. And I think the best way to manage it is by ensuring that if there's anybody who is objective and wants to check if it is true or not, they should find that you're working above board. If you're working with the locals, you're treating them with respect. You're doing your business based on best governance. You're working with the government structures. And that's what we try to do. So will the criticisms go? I doubt. I think as we even do things better, it will increase, because some of these people hate to see successful African models. And our job is, when we are given instructions on these countries, it is all about the people. How can we share experiences with humility and be able to grow together with these countries that we are investing in on the continent.
So to follow up on that, so what are some of those countries that we're looking at? Because I've only mentioned two. And then I would want to know when we're looking at target markets for our investment, what are the things that you are in particular looking at as saying, you know what, this is a good idea, let us invest in this. This is a good idea, or maybe this one we should leave it alone. How do you, whether it's you or the chairman, how do you come up with that assessment of, let us invest here, let us not invest here?
So there are deals we look for, and there are deals that come through our doors. So we do have a strategy, and we have decided that we shall only focus on 4 areas. And this is based on areas that we think we have some leverage. It's areas we think we understand a little bit about, and we think they're areas that would grow us and our partners. So the first area is we want to focus on agriculture, and in this particular case, we're talking about both primary agriculture and production.
Primary that's farming.
That's farming.
Okay.
Apologies for the jargon. Yes, farming, different crops. Secondly, we'll look at mining, because we think we have gained some reputation with certain companies that are willing to work with us in that sector. Thirdly is infrastructure services, because of the experience of NPD, experiences of ISCO in IT services and security, experiences of real contractors, what we're able to do with the construction materials companies like Ruriwa and EAGI. We think those are also low-hanging fruits. And lastly, trading, because some of these countries are predominantly consumer countries, if I may say that, and there are a lot of opportunities for trading. And then in terms of projects, we choose different countries based, one, on our bilateral relations, because business is politics and politics is business. So it is important to understand the politics that are taking place in those countries. Secondly is who are our partners, because we don't invest blindly. We always want to have some joint ventures with local partners. So we are very careful on who we want to do business with. And we avoid situations where we invest alone, because we appreciate the local content importance, but also bring in some international investors to be able to work with them and learn from them and be able to leverage their experiences.
Okay. And the question about where are we actually investing now?
In terms of countries, we are in Zimbabwe, we're in Zambia, we're in the Republic of Congo, commonly said Brazzaville, we are in Mozambique, and we are in Central African Republic.
Okay. So can you help us understand how these investments around the continent come back and benefit us here back home?
Some of them will benefit us in different ways. One is also capacity building. If we are talking about mining, talking about large-scale mining. Secondly, by being interested in some of these countries, we have had a situation where some of the investors that we are going to work with in those countries, when they visit Rwanda, they actually take a decision to first invest in Rwanda.
Really?
So it is also another, maybe I'll call it economic diplomacy. So it is also some other diplomacy that we are creating, and we have seen quite a number getting interested to invest in Rwanda, or getting interested to invest with us in Rwanda so that we can invest with them on the continent. Secondly, we are going as business people. So though we have a double bottom line, impact and profitability, we intend to repatriate whatsoever we have done. First of all, there is reinvestment in those countries. Then also some dividends come back into the country, just like any other foreign investment.
Yeah. So the last question. CVL has existed in some form or the other, first as TriStar, since 1995. So that's almost 30 years, almost actually from the very day RPF won the Civil War and stopped the genocide. We know we can now kind of map what CVL has done for the last 30 years in terms of the industries, in terms of the lives that have been changed, the farmers that have gotten opportunities, all the jobs that have been created. I'd like you to kind of think into the future, 30 years from now. What does CVL look like to you?
30 years from now, CVL should be easily tenfold. And as much as it may sound like an exaggerated number, given where given where we started, and given the foundation that we have now, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be. I say they shouldn't be because I'm sure I want to be there 30 years. They shouldn't be tenfold in 30 years. Secondly, they should be moving into a lot of innovation, artificial intelligence. They need to leverage the book, because the CVL book is under-leveraged, meaning that you can do a lot of investments based on what we have achieved so far. And a lot of growth on the continent. When you visit these countries, there is a lot of growth potential. There are challenges, but within those challenges, there are some opportunities that can easily grow CVL and the country in an unprecedented way.
Jack, thank you so much for joining me on the long form.
Thank you, Sanny.
I hope that this one hasn't been, I know you don't often get a chance to talk to local media. I hope that this one is a nice icebreaker for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And hopefully you will join us sometime next year when you are maybe announcing the initial public offering.
With pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the conversation today, share your thoughts with us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.